going east.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go to Kansas right now. It's hurricane season,
I know.
tornado season.
I don't know, I like Kansas.
Yeah, but not right now.
Yeah, I don't mind it. Nice there.
Yeah?
Tornadoes.
Nobody to argue with, just get out in the open and.
No, yeah, nobody to argue with. Nice, weather's warm there.
And,
How long do you
and
think
start-
you'll find out?
and tornado season, just stay out of the trailer parks and you're fine.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
anytime you're ready.
Okay.
That's where Greg is.
Oh, yeah. That's
Well,
right.
he's in Romania right now, but I
Yeah.
think he bought a house in Chapman, Kansas.
Nice.
Okay. This is the town of Newport on March 29th, 2022. And we'll start with a roll call with Tobin. Sean. I'm looking at you.
Yeah, I know.
Pointing over there.
I'm like,
That's right, it's been a long day. Go ahead.
Tobin Menard.
Ken Merrill?
Ray Gibby?
David Burnham, Chair. Agenda review, there's no continued business, so we just jump right into new business if everybody's okay with that. And we have a presentation from
We just need a chair.
Gale Associates.
Yes.
You good?
I need a chair right here. And Bert is here.
Take a packet if you're gonna sit over there.
Do you want to, Bert, do you want to take a chair behind me to sit at the
You
table?
go, John.
Let me get it?
I don't mind sitting there.
I'll grab it. if you want.
We can have
Grab a chair, let me get, sorry guys, oh my gosh.
your chair goes everywhere.
I know, I knew I shouldn't have pushed that chair behind that.
You know, they made this building handicap accessible for you 20 years ago.
Well, you know what, I'm wider than most handicapped people, so I don't get through very easy. I've already broken all my knuckles on the door frames.
Now, he obviously hasn't tried to use that ramp, huh?
I'm exhausted going up and down.
were here, Neil.
I'm getting that fixed.
Compliant.
It is not. I've been appalled since I started here, and I wasn't in this thing. Should see me get up, try to get up there.
Why isn't that coming?
Humiliated. It's not code compliant. It's way too steep. The railings are rusted.
That's maintenance, that's not code compliance.
Well, they're open. Anyway, I like it.
Sheesh.
Oh,
I'll just hang out right here.
absolutely.
It may
Wait
have
a
been code
minute, then.
compliant when it was put in.
You've got a master plan?
That's all.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have not.
There you go. Oh,
We have two more members joining
you got
the
that.
board.
Did you
One,
get
two,
this
three,
in the
four,
agenda?
five,
Do you
six.
want
We
the
can have
agenda?
7, right?
Get you the agenda.
Can we have, John Hooper is the alternate for the Board of Selectmen. And Bert Spalding can sit, who are we missing? Vacancy, right?
Vacancy.
Can sit for the vacancy.
There is one? No, yeah, there is.
'Cause
It's
I
a
mean,
7 members, so yeah, there's at least, I think there's 2 actually.
Absolutely, yep.
We're setting records for participation here tonight.
Yes. Everybody's back from deer hunting. Thank you.
It's you.
Okay, and I'll let you introduce Gale Associates, 'cause
We have a presenter here this evening from an engineering firm, amongst other things, that can do case reviews or,
but I have no
and
details.
this is, yes, and Scott is here. And he's going to hand out some pamphlets, and go ahead, Scott, introduce yourself and your title, I guess.
Fair enough. Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Scott Borst here. I'm Gale Associates. I'm a project manager, a civil engineer, licensed civil engineer in the state of New Hampshire. What I'm handing out right now is a hard copy packet that many of you probably have already seen electronically from Christina. The only difference between this packet that I'm handing out now and the previous one is really just the work sample. Same amount of work samples there, but it shows more of a broad range of municipalities. I believe electronics showed more of the town of Hillsborough. And here it demonstrates a lot of our other communities that we service, like Milton and Bow, just to name a few. What I pretty much do is my specialty is to be a municipal engineer. Basically, my goal is to try to be the town engineer for on the consultant side. And what that does, it allows me to work with multiple communities versus just being a town engineer for one community. And the great thing about that is I'm able to pull from different communities and see how different communities work and what works for them and what does not work for them, and then take that information and share it with other communities that we service. One of the things that we do provide primarily is to help with planning boards and peer reviews, third-party reviews. It's my understanding that Newport currently relies heavily on Christina to do those reviews, zoning ordinance, site or subdivision regulations, and then anything else that goes on, and that goes on before the board. And then once the board approves the plan, then she's heavily involved with the construction aspects of it. Christine and I met about in December at a New Hampshire Planners Association, happened to be sitting down at a conference and happened to exchange names. And we're talking, and that's where I realized that Christine was doing a lot of heavy lifting for this board, which is great. There are pros and cons with that. The pro is she's knee-deep in everything. The con is a lot of these municipalities that have a third-party review, that burden, that financial burden, is not placed on the tax dollars of the residents by having the town planner do it, but by having the peer review do it and then being reimbursed by that applicant, whether it be a subdivision or site plan review. The other benefit of it is by the other associates getting into the weeds and the grassroots of the development, looking at the zoning, looking at the development, looking at good engineering practices, looking at traffic, drainage, and all that stuff, it frees up Christina to be more of a high-level managerial and make sure that things are coming in, things are going out, things are meeting deadlines, and then hopefully spending more time on higher-level tasks like capital improvements or finding grant funds for the community, whether it be for public infrastructure or a police station or anything that is out there. Matter of fact, I have something here I'd like to share later on that we've have discovered through the governor's recent State of the State address, and we're trying to have a thumbs on it to feel how that goes, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But getting back to what we do and stating the pros and cons of having peer review, we're able to help support and to supplement Christina's effort on this. Right now, Gail kind of works with a lot of communities. We work with the town of Hillsborough, we work with the town of Bow, Milton. I did work with the town of Hampstead about 3 years ago. That contract ended. They went with a different firm. And that firm is ending this year, and in speaking with a lot of the board members, they're very excited to go back out, and hopefully we'll be submitting, and that means they'll be getting back to us, which means they appreciated the hard work and the effort that we provided to the town of Hampstead. All those communities perform differently. Some of them have town planning board administrators, some of them have town planners. And on all of them, the type of services we provide ranges. Some of them, like the town of Chester, want us to do everything, the kit and caboodle. They want the whole Cadillac. We look at zoning ordinance, we look at regulations, we look at good engineering practices, traffic, drainage, everything that is necessary for a development to come before the planning board and for us to review. We review it, we present a review letter to the board for your consideration, understanding what the applicant is trying to do and some deficiencies that we're seeing or some concerns that we're seeing. We've also worked with some towns like Bow that has a town planner, and where they just want us to look at specific items. Look at just drainage on this application, look at traffic on this application, just look at this particular aspect of it. And we're able to do that, we're able to tailor. And then we've also worked with some communities like Raymond, where it's on a case-by-case basis, where sometimes the applicant comes in and the town planner is like, no, I want you to do everything. And then other times they're like, no, I've got this and this. If you could just review that, that would be great. Really appreciate it. So our Level of service is à la carte. It's all dependent upon what the board feels is necessary to help provide the service here. And our goal is to really educate the board so that when it comes time to make it a thumbs up or a thumbs down approval on that application, you have the information that you need to make that informed decision and education on that application. One of the few things I'd like to go through on this packet, and like I said, most of this is similar to what we've already done electronically, and hopefully a lot of you have read this, but some of the things I wanted to go through is basically a lot of the sample documents that we've done. Starting off, what we normally do is we provide a master agreement. And in that master agreement here's one with the town of Hillsborough, where we talk about the project understanding, talk about the type of services we can provide, and the limitations of that. Like, we're not going to be doing topographic surveys, we're not going to be doing right-of-way and research, or property boundaries and research of right-of-way limits. Those are on the applicants, but we will be looking at completeness of the application, and as I said many times before, ordinance, regulations, good engineering practices, review as to how it impacts with federal state permits, like alteration of terrain permits, or wetland permits, or shoreline permits. And then we can provide a surety with regards to the development, depending on the type of development. If it's a subdivision where the town will be taking over, the applicant can decide to do either a builder or bonded type of mentality, where they build it, and most of the times they'll build it up to binding course pavement. Then they can record the plat to start selling lots, and then that is where we'll recommend a surety amount that is held by the town. So in the event that the developer goes under, or some financial impact impedes the developer from finishing the project, the town can come in and has a responsibility to those new residents to finish off the project. Or if the project was a commercial development, obviously the commercial development is to be built per the plan, but what you want to make sure is if something were to happen, that the site can be stabilized so that stormwater, erosion control, or any downstream abutters are not affected as a result of this land being disturbed and then not being completed and finished. So we can finish and complete those type of items, and that would be discussed and identified in our master agreement. And then once the master agreement is executed, then we move on and we can do task orders for both peer review, as I said before, a full review where we look at everything, the whole Cadillac of it, of the application, or limited where we're looking at specific items, again, as directed by Christina or by the board as you guys see fit on a case-by-case basis. And then the same application and the same process approach can be done on construction review, where we do a full review and oversight of the construction. We're not the construction managers. We're not here to look at project safety. That is the contractor's responsibility. But we do want to make sure that what was built, what was approved on the plan is what was built. Specifically, if it's a subdivision or some sort of infrastructure where the town's been taken over. Roadways are supposed to last 20 years. If a contractor takes a shortcut, that road is not going to last 20 years. And as we all know, we're trying to take that road and stretch it out to 25, 30 years because unfortunately, all of us as taxpayers and residents are trying to divvy up a dollar and make it go as far as we can. The last thing we need is new infrastructure coming in and not being built accordingly. And then we can also do limited if it's a commercial development, just making sure we're looking at the 10,000 foot level, that erosion control measures are installed, that the storm drainage is installed appropriately, and so that and the reason we look at those type of aspects or components of that application during the construction is because it's those applications and those components that could affect downstream abutters. Pavement, the site plan may say they need 3 inches of pavement in the parking lot. At the end of the day, any of you guys really care if pavement is 3 inches, 2 inches? If they want to shortchange themselves, they're only hurting themselves. But as long as the town is having the landscape that's there to make sure that the building is as beautiful as it's supposed to be, to have a welcoming and aesthetically pleasing infrastructure to the community, that is what matters on commercial development. But again, that is my opinion, and that's something that coming into it, that's what we're presenting, but if you guys feel differently, we're here to be a reflection of the board, and if you guys say, no, we want everything this way, then we'll reflect that and guide that accordingly. If you want something less, then we will perform accordingly, because we want to make sure that we are an adjunct to the town, an adjunct to the board, and that we're an extension of you guys, and we're reporting to you guys what we see. Going back to planning board reviews, this letter here is something that is a typical letter that we present on a lot of applications, whether it be a site development or a subdivision. We state what we reviewed, what the application's package was, how many plans, what it did include a traffic study, did it include a drainage study, did it include any other studies that we're supposed to look at. And then we go through and review as to were there any misspellings, common T's being crossed, I's being dotted that should be done on the plans, any review comments or deficiencies in relations to the zoning or the regulations, any of our concerns through just good engineering practices of that. We'll make recommendations. And again, these are all recommendations. At the end of the day, it is you as the board that has to make the decision of, okay, you know what, thank you, Scott, we appreciate that comment, but in this situation, we don't think it's necessary, so we're all set. Okay, not a problem. If it's in a subdivision or regulation, then the applicant just submits a waiver, you guys approve it, and you move on, not a problem. Or, no, that's a good point, thank you very much, Scott, we'll take that into consideration and think about how that impacts our community going forward. One of the things that we also like to do is we also realize that some of these review comments, it's not usually a one and done. We'll have a review, we'll submit a letter to the board, submit a letter to the applicant and to the applicant's engineer of record so they can start addressing these comments. And we really try our best in our review letter to identify everything that we can so that we're doing it one shot. And the reason I want to make that clear is there are other engineering firms out there that I've heard from other communities or from applicants. I'm not here to milk the applicant's dollar. I'm not here to look at it as a gravy train. I understand they're here to come in, get a project done, and hopefully have a successful project that is profitable to them. And there's nothing wrong with the word profit. It's not a dirty word. It's a word that they should be able to walk away and have a successful project and be profitable. The last thing we want is their profit being a detriment to the town because they cut corners. But as a result of that, we want to make sure that our review letter is basically being performed as a checklist so that when the engineer record receives it, they're going down, 1 done, 1A done, 1B done, 1C done. And then if there's any comments that are repeat comments, we want to make sure we address that and identify that. A good example is on our sample letter, 1F, I have in comment in bold down below, repeat comment. And that kind of gives me an ability to indicate to all of you as the board members that this was a comment that we identified before, the applicant has not addressed it, and so this is something of concern. And the reason that is a point I do want to make out is because sometimes I've dealt with some engineers of record in other communities where they'll start off with a 6-page review letter. I mean, some of them is disappointing. My son at a 6-year in 6th grade can do better than some of the applications they come in with not having north arrows and scale bars. And it's like, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing? And so you come in and they start off with a 6-page review letter. By the time they get to the 3rd review and we'll work that down to like 2 pages, that's when the applicant starts getting, hey, wait a minute here, this is starting to cost me money, this is getting ridiculous, when are you guys going to be done? And my simple response is, when your engineer can address these comments, look at all these review comments that are still being outstanding, look at the repeat comments. You get them addressed, we'll be able to get this thing moved forward for the board to either accept or deny the application. So again, it's about communication, making sure that we're trying to be as transparent as possible to not only the board, but the applicant and the engineer of record. Moving on, a couple things that we do is when we do a surety for a bond, We always base it off of the current DOT weighted unit average pricing. So it's something that is justifiable, something that we can pull and say, here's our justification for this unit rate. Sometimes there will not be pay items in at DOT because of the specialty of the project, like a water main or sewer main, and so we'll have to go based on bid results that we see, but we really try as much as possible to rely on DOT so that it is an item that everyone can justify on. And the reason we do that and we use DOT is because it is, like I said, something that we can rely on, something that we can pull from, something that everyone can agree on, and it's not something that last thing we want to do, and I've heard this before, where a bond will make a recommendation to a surety, for surety, and the applicant comes back and says, oh, my contractor can do it cheaper. Yeah, that's nice. I don't care, because you went out for a bid and bid prices came in and you picked the slowest bid. What we're trying to do is make sure that this bid, this surety is good enough so that when the town goes out and has to redo the work or has to do the work that your contractor failed to do, there is money in the kitty and the town is, and the taxpayers are not having to front the difference. Hence why we put a 25% contingency on that. Hence why we do the DOT bid items, because those are usually higher. We also realize when the town goes out to bid to do this work, they're going to require bid bonds, payment bonds, performance bonds, where a lot of these applicants may neglect those bonds, and hence why the contractor is able to get that to be done cheaply for them. If they can be able to do it cheaply, more cost effective, great, good for them. That's nothing wrong with that. But here we're looking out for the best interest of town, and what is the kitty, what's the funds in that kitty, so in the event that something happens, the town is protected to make sure that the site is stable, or to make sure that the site has to be finished off for those new residents in that subdivision. Other than that, I think going through, we have a sample pre-construction agenda when we get into construction that we do, depending on the type of project, whether it be a subdivision or site plan. As you can see, in comparing them, the subdivision is a whole lot longer. There's a lot of things to discuss. We'll want to look at the different milestones that we will be wanting to review: clearing, grubbing, subgrading, drainage, any utilities, and then the different courses of the roadway infrastructure that's being built up with regards to that. And then we wanting to have shop drawings to be submitted so that that can be filed away in the town's files, because at the end of the day, if there's a catch basin and a manhole or a drainage or a grate or a cover, Public Works is going to want to know what type of infrastructure and what type of material that is, and is it in conformance with what they normally use. And a good example of that is we used to service the city of Somersworth, and the city of Somersworth wanted to make sure that all of their manhole covers had hinges on them. So where typically an applicant will come in, their contractor will come in and have manholes that are easily removed all the way, we wanted to make sure that we saw a shop drawing review so that that manhole cover was being installed with hinges, so that the city of Somersworth wasn't having to have two products on their shelves, one for this, one having a hinge for the rest of the city, and then a specific manhole cover for this one specific drainage infrastructure that is going on in the subdivision, that everything is meeting their infrastructure products, and that the town and the city is not having to purchase special items on that. Pre-construction meeting minutes, that's just a good thing to do, to have with everybody, so everybody knows what's on the same page of what is going on, what the expectations are, the lines of communication are, and basically that is the starting point, so that when a contractor or an applicant or there's confusion, we're heading and we're looking at the meeting minutes and say, well, what did we discuss at the meeting minutes? This is what we discussed, this is what we agreed on, you should know better on this, and this is not acceptable, or something like that. And then field reports. Every time we're out on the site, we do a field report. Who was on site? What did we observe? What was the equipment? Who did we talk to? And then on every site visit, we do the best we can to take photographs. And to me, that is something that is basically construction observation 101, incorporating photographs so that you see what we see. And sadly enough, I guess that is not something, and speaking as I returning back to Hampstead, their current town engineer does not take photographs, and the town, the planning board and the planning board administrator is frustrated and express their frustrations, and when they go back to their field reports that we submitted prior to, we had field reports, we had photographs, so they saw what we saw, and they had an understanding of what was a gate valve, what was a hydrant, what was this, what was a block. And so they look forward to getting that back, and that is something that we go into. And then lastly, that we have in here, or not lastly, but second to last, are milestone letters. So every time we go out to the site during construction, we do both scheduled and unscheduled. And we try to make sure that we're finding that good balance. Last thing we want to do is just have someone go out there, put suntan lotion, and turn this into a full-time construction observation. That is not our job. We've found that there's really no value into that. That's just milking the project and milking the applicant for funds that should not be there. And that we find that being periodic inspections is an adequate level of service to both the town and the applicant to make sure things are done. Sometimes we'll go out there just unscheduled, just to see how things going. What's the status, just to see how the pipe's being installed, make sure erosion control is being done. We're not there to do the performance of the SWIP, that is the contractor's responsibility, but we will make sure we look at the erosion control and make sure that we look at the SWIPs and review those reports and see that they are being performed. But then on the milestone letters where we're doing clearing and grubbing or base pavement or drainage or infrastructure, we have letters that we will prepare and submit to the board and to the town for filing as to what we saw, what we observed, was it done correctly, were there any challenges that need to be done. And in addition to that, if there are any test reports that need to be done. In here, for the town of Bow, there was a water main, so we had pressure testing and disinfection testing. We also had road subgrades being performed, and so we provided the gradation and the moisture density curves of that, so that in the event 5 years from now, if the board decides, no, thank you very much, Gail, we're going to go with someone else, or we're going to not do this anymore, at least the town has those records on file, in your file, to see what was the compaction test, was this water disinfected, was the pressure results according to what the current standards are. And then lastly, we'll do a project closeout where we'll do a punch list to identify any outstanding items before the town considers accepting the road as their own infrastructure type of project. So that is a lot of discussion and talking that I just did in a nutshell. Everything that we did from the Cadillac to limited services that we can provide to the board, to the planning board, to the department, and to the town itself. I guess that at this point, are there any questions that the board may have?
Not really. You look like you were gonna ask something.
No questions directly. I mean, I hate third-party review. That would be my first comment, I would say.
And why is that?
My experience in the construction world is, and not so much on the town side, but I've seen it a little ugly on the town side as well, most notably Hillsborough. And I think the perspective from someone trying to bring a usually commercial project into a smaller community such as Newport, we're not usually talking someone bringing a Walmart in here. We're usually talking about someone doing a small commercial project. And third-party review, although it certainly can be a great benefit to the town, a super adept board or zoning administrator or engineer of record or inspector that really knows what they're doing, there's great benefit potentially, but there's always significant cost to having something that you've already hired an engineer to create plans or whatever, and then all of a sudden you have to pay another one who is going to review someone else's work And anytime there's more than one engineer involved, wait a minute. Well, my guy said this. Well, it doesn't matter. The town wants to do this. And it's been my experience that the administrator spends as much time collecting information back and forth rather than just saying, well, what's your engineer say? Looks like it's covered. I'm good to go. So for what it's worth, I'm not excited about telling anyone that their engineer or their project needs another engineer to look at it.
Yeah.
In Newport.
And that's a valid point, and a common observation or argument that I do hear from a lot of different applicants. I've hired this civil engineer, he's got his stamp, he's the engineer of record, that should be good enough. And that is true. At the end of the day, I'm not responsible, that engineer of record is responsible. However, that engineer is being paid by the applicant to look at the zoning and regulations, and there's black, there's white, and there's a lot of gray in between. And that applicant's engineer of record would be not doing their job if they were not looking at that gray and trying to figure out how it best suits the applicant. Their interest is not in the best suit of the town, but the applicant. And my job is not so much to come in and be anti-development or anti-anything. My job is really just to review and make sure, is that guardrail appropriate? Is the measures of construction acceptable for the town? I agree with commercial development. There's very little risk for the town because it is that developer. The risk really comes into when you have subdivisions or infrastructure where the town is, where infrastructure is being expanded, and the town's going to have to take that over. And if compaction wasn't done, or if the placement of the material or the right pavement design wasn't done, drainage wasn't done appropriately, or water, sewer, whatever that infrastructure is, that's where the applicant's engineer record is looking for the best interest of the applicant, and we come in looking for the best interest of the town, making sure that it's done, and that roadway does last 20 years, because the last thing we need is a road to last 10 years and have that road have to get listed onto the Public Works list of, there's another road I need to somehow figure out how to fix when I've got 20 other roads that are already in the queue. So it's not, I see your point, and unfortunately, yes, there are, just like engineering firms that are for the applicant, there are good ones and there are bad ones. There are engineering firms out there that are for the town that are good and bad. Sure. And I do try my best, we try our best at Gale to listen to the applicants, listen to the engineers of record, understand where they're coming from, and try to be transparent and try to be straightforward and understand. I'm not here, as I said before, to try to milk the applicant for every dollar they can. I'm here to make sure that the job gets done correctly, and I do want the project to be successful. I do want the applicant to walk away and feel this was successful. It was a good project. He or she is proud of it, and they made some money off of it. There's nothing wrong with that. I just want to make sure that that the money they made wasn't at the detriment of the town having to repair those infrastructures later on down the road.
I guess my comment would be, and I kind of said this briefly in the email we had about setting up this, but I've seen it in my professional career, mostly used on the building inspection or building permit side.
Yeah.
When the building department didn't have the expertise or didn't have the time or bandwidth to review. So this is something to keep in the bullpen if needed. This is an avenue you could go. Hadn't really seen it much in the planning board side, but it could be done the same way. Say we had somebody come in and put in a monster subdivision that is well beyond the purview of anybody here to look at. That would be an opportunity to think about doing something like this. But it's always there to look at and talk about. But it's used in the business, and yes, sometimes it has to. Sometimes I've actually seen clients request peer review, believe it or not, because they think they get a faster return on the review.
Absolutely.
So But it does have, you know, you get competing engineers, and I are one, and that's what you get, you know.
That is the sad
Difference
part
of
about
opinions.
engineers. We are arrogant and we like to think that we know best.
Right.
And again, as I said before, I do try to listen. At the end of the day, it's not my project, it's not my stamp. I'm here to just present recommendations, my observations, my opinions, and then it's up to the board to say, thank you, Scott, but we disagree and we're gonna go with it. Okay, that's fine, not a problem. I try to act as if I was in the town, but at the end of the day, like I said, I have no skin in the game except trying to support you guys as need be. And not every application has to be reviewed by us to the full extent or to a limited extent. If there's a lot line relocation, yeah, don't waste the poor homeowner that is trying to subdivide a lot that they have for their son or daughter to build a lot on. I think Christine can do that very well.
I didn't even,
Maybe.
a lot, I was thanks, Ken. I was thinking, if we have some of these larger projects, which I believe one is going through, at least this summer or fall, there are some things that the building inspector and even I go out on site, and I would have to ask Alan tomorrow, but you know that huge wall on Spring Street that they're building? I'm gonna ask Alan, are we gonna have to we might have to bring in a state official to make sure that's done correctly, right?
Well, no, because anything over 6 feet is an engineered wall, and that engineer who put a stamp on that design
Well,
has to come out and inspect that.
Okay,
So, you know, Alan can sit there and insist on, where's a letter from your state inspector
I
that
wanna
you did
see
it
that
according
this has
with his design, and then you will
Okay.
have covered that.
and I just know that when I first came here, they were doing the final inspections on the Summercrest. And I actually went to the final review, which was a little crazy, but there was a lot wrong in there actually, and they delayed the opening of the wing. But we had the huge backup of the state inspecting it too, thank God. But if we were doing it ourselves, I just would have felt a little more nervous. Thank God we had the state that required.
From a building inspection point of view.
Well, they had gaps in all their fire doors, these huge gaps at the window. I mean, they
Right.
cut things, yeah, they had a lot wrong. And I just was sitting there going, it got, I couldn't believe it. It delayed the opening quite a bit. That just felt a little overwhelming. And even I think, and we've had projects too at the school that Alan has called in, the state electrician and stuff. Now we do have backup, and Alan's excellent. And I really think it would be for our bigger, massive projects, not a subdivision. But that's, my.
But like in those cases, as a particular example, that's the business that I work in, but
Absolutely.
you have Alan, you have the fire chief,
Yeah.
can raise the question, and then the architect, being the architect of record and/or his design group, bear the burden of meeting the code
Code.
respective to that. So
And I think.
there is a
Alan-
process there.
Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely.
But if it's say you were building a new hospital, a 5-story hospital with very intricate details and things that was beyond yours and Alan's capabilities to review the plans to get it to approval,
Right.
that's when something like
Right.
this is most pertinent. And
Potentially.
Okay.
Some of the bigger places do overwhelm me a little, even though I think they're gonna be constructed well.
Well, and some of the towns or cities that have larger commercial buildings and different things have a full-time inspector,
Right.
multiple staff on,
Right.
in the planning department to help with that. But even then, it gets beyond,
I
I
can't.
mean, I work Hanover, Lebanon all the time, and
Right.
they go out to peer review
Right.
often. So, but those are also the kind of clients that don't mind paying a little bit extra to make sure their project gets through, and if that's what's gonna get them through, that, they're willing to do that. You know, so.
I think it's a great contact to have, and, as something comes up that feels like,
It wouldn't be up to me, ever.
it'd be
It'd
up
be up to the board.
Be up to the board to say, hey, we don't know anything about putting a nuclear power plant in.
We stayed at a
First
Holiday
thing to
Inn
make
once.
it Russian proof.
Go ahead.
If we were to say,
we occasionally needed your service, is there a retention cost? We don't, let's say we go a year without calling you. Is there any retention charge that the town is responsible for?
No, there is not, because everything that is, all of our services are paid by the applicant. There are state RSAs that allows the planning board to request reimbursement for the services we provide.
Right, I'm cognizant of that. But you're here wanting us to use you as a resource, and if that, the fire truck sitting over there costs us money every day, okay? If there's no retention costs, when we call you, the costs are not ours, goes to the applicant.
There is no retention cost.
Right.
You don't call me,
Right.
I
So
don't
therefore,
bill.
okay, so that when you gave me the first part of that answer, it was okay. When you went to the second part, you went beyond, so hang on.
Okay, sorry.
Okay? So there's no retention costs. So we go for 365 days and we don't call you, and we got a project that you would like to come, we'd like you to come and help us through the application process. Because as Ken has made out, after the process is complete and the permits are given, that's all done by people that have got the knowledge and education to do so. So we should rely on that. But in the process, as they come forward to us as where I think we could use the service, we have 3 projects that are going to be fairly good size coming up. And I would like to feel secure that those projects are going to be done lawfully, within the context of the zoning ordinance and all else. But that call would come from us, and if that was it, and if I call you a spare tire, I don't mean to be offensive, that's important to have that sometimes. So have I summed it up right, of what it would be for us?
I believe so. I think I responded both the first answer, maybe I went a little too far just to state that of the RSAs, but yeah, if, I'm not here to push this tonight, if a master agreement was signed tonight and then you guys didn't need us to do anything because you were able to handle it, and then 2 years later you said, hey Scott, we have this. Well, that cost for that application review starts then, not 2 years. There's no cost for me to sit here and twiddle my thumbs because you're not using me. That's the benefit of an on-call as needed. If you don't need me, I don't bill. There's nothing there to bill on that aspects of it. And that bill, it will be going towards the applicant to review that application, to do what you guys have identified, what Gail needs to do, whether it be everything or just a limited, tiny review of that.
Go ahead, Ray.
I think it would be a good thing to keep track of some of these bigger projects, because as they're coming in now, they're investors that are bringing these to us. And they're just getting approvals and then they're selling them. So we don't know if they're even gonna do them or who will do them someday. You know, there's a growing number of those coming. So I think it'd be good to,
That is where the game has changed with regards to commercial.
yeah.
Commercial, it used to be Home Depot comes in, Home Depot buys a lot, Home Depot prepares the plans, Home Depot presents it to you guys. Now they realized people don't want a box store, so they don't want their name, bad press, find a middle person, and they go buy the lot and prepare everything for it. They come to you guys and they say, here's a lot, and we're like, looks like a Home Depot plan to me. Yeah, I don't know, I'm still trying to find that tenant there. He or she knows who's going in there. His job or her job is to give them a turnkey thing. But in the event, like you said, we want to make sure that we're reviewing it and that it gets done, and this is what is being approved of and being built accordingly.
I would add to that, when someone comes forward with their project, it's their project. And so therefore, they look at it through a different set of eyes than we do. And if they can save $1,000 by not doing this particular thing, we may think that that is not appropriate to not do. But we may not see it. and that means we become easy, would be the word that I would use. Oh, you can get it done there. There are things that we don't know. We rely on Dave to do everything now, so when Dave leaves us, we might have to have somebody. But my point
That's what
being,
Kim was saying.
my point being the interest, the drive by the developer may not be acceptable to us. My question on the zoning board of the 4-story building that went 3 feet over the zoning ordinance. So it was a variance required. And I thought, well, geez, maybe you can bring it down 3 feet and we don't have to go through this, and what's the hardship? But I'm not an engineer. I don't know what the ceiling height inside has to be, what, all of those parameters. So when you stack this thing up, is it the 3 feet on the top because, well, it looked kind of dull as a building and we want a sign up there saying this, and so the 3 foot for the sign is the real 3 feet. And so that all being said,
Well, not having seen the plans, that site, you could take the lower elevation on the site and drop it and make it just as pleasant and get within the zoning and not have an issue, but that would, yeah,
well, my thought was...
it wasn't a variance, but.
It wasn't, well, they did have, it has to be from the median, from the average, which again, I don't know that they got the average right. Bert, do you know that, I mean, it was supposed to be from the average landscape, 40 feet up. It's so,
You can manipulate.
You know, it was
yeah.
from the
Right.
front, it's from the front, not
he
the
did it
rear.
from the front.
So, but if you did that and pitched the roof front, you got the water coming to the front, you may not want it to the front, but here's the ordinance, and what's the hardship? So, in the end, we didn't know, and we acquiesced and gave it.
Right,
And
so you give away your tenants to,
Yeah.
for that.
Could the building have been lowered 6 inches here and 5 there and get that? So is that a question you'd answer?
It would be a question of review, we'd be looking at the architectural and saying, okay, what is the average? Well, we felt, and we would describe, based on topography, this is where we're coming up with the average elevation and what the height is, and then let the applicant say, no, we come in like this, and then you guys would have 2 balls, and you'd be able to figure out which is better. Again, at the end of the day, if you guys said, no, Gail is right, this is what we're going for, that's fine. If you said the applicant is right, again, no.
Scott, would
Okay,
you be
so
able to say we can, like, they could lower it easily enough? That's what I think, like, could they
No,
fix
that's
it?
not what I'm getting at now, Scott, is, so in that scenario, if we saw it coming and called you, that is an appropriate call. That's something that you could do and would do, all right? And then, so we might say at the meeting, we continue this to the next meeting so that we can get this expertise with our point of view, and they pay the bill. I like that because at that point, they may say, well, we'll take the sign off the top.
So in that, like I said, without having seen the plans, talking about a variance, so you could do that, anybody could look at it, come up with numerous options for other ways. The dollar sign is not a hardship. And in my mind, therefore, that variance should not have been granted, but not having seen it,
That's right.
okay? But, I've been in this business a long time, and I've seen a lot of money spent to get a building in where it didn't meet, and you had to do something expensive to make it work, and everybody does it. So, but that's the zoning board. They have to live with their,
Well, that was,
Decisions.
now, of course, again, taking a lot potentially for granted, but it's gonna be a government-funded project.
doesn't matter.
I know, and they said that there's, now, again, this is what was stated, very small profit room, so that if they were to build it differently, the project might collapse on itself, or they couldn't be innovative. That's watching the meeting, what I
Right.
believe. Well, we didn't have a lot of backup because we didn't have any review that,
there again, borne by the applicant. That's their issue.
Absolutely.
From a town side, do we want commercial development? Yes, we do, for tax reasons, I get it, okay? But do you wanna give away the farm and the cow and the milk? Or do you wanna just make small concessions to be able to do things? Maybe this is a minor one that, okay, we can all live with. I mean, other, you know, but where does it end, right? And I've seen numerous variances come through that I disagree with, but they're the ones making the decision, but, you know.
And maybe the ones that shouldn't be. Now, I'd like to ask another one. We have a development that's going in, and large, good size, at least for Newport, and could we have required a sidewalk along the entire frontage of that property where there was none, as an off-site improvement required in order to go ahead with the project?
I guess it depends upon the type of project going on. If it was a bunch of single-family homes, and this was something that was in the town's master plan, there would be justification to connect that infrastructure, that subdivision into an existing sidewalk system.
Okay, so we have to see it in the master plan.
Typically, on some off-site improvements, you do need to have a master plan that talks about where sidewalks are going to be, what kind of community you're going to be in. Last thing you want is have a 1,200-foot new subdivision road with sidewalks. Unless they get to the intersection, there's nothing for the kids or pedestrians to walk on. And unfortunately, I would have to side with the applicant on that one and say, that's a waste of money, because where these kids, after I get them through my development, where are they gonna walk? But if there was existing sidewalk there at that intersection, that would be a comment that we would make, saying we propose, or we would recommend, or in our opinion, sidewalk should be incorporated in this development because it's single-family homes. There's a sidewalk here, the school is 2 miles away, or there's some sort of downtown center or something, that park or whatever that would attract kids or pedestrians to walk. That would be something that we would recommend and the board could request.
And if we need expertise on water usage, sewer, et cetera, beyond the project, part of the problem, as I see it from my point of view, is the whole process has become so complicated
It is.
that it gets beyond the purview of most lay people who come forward, including me. And you want to do the right thing, but you may not have all the knowledge you need to make that right thing. So the spare tire in a case like that would be fine.
We have no problem being that spare tire that sits in the trunk,
Yep.
waiting for that time to be called.
And the fact that we don't pay you is another good point.
I do want to say the nuclear plant comment, there are no plans that are coming down the, nobody has
never know.
approached the town.
You don't know that.
Nobody's
Never
approached
know.
the town.
Tomorrow's another day.
Uh-huh.
You gave away my business plan.
They're not in the master plan.
I could
Biden
just,
keeps speaking, Putin might be here.
I could just see somebody watching this tomorrow and then you getting a phone call.
I know. Yeah, I know. No, I'll fend them off well enough. We have nothing as of today yet.
And so, one of the things that, as I keep trying to impress upon, is that we're here to be supportive of the board and to help supplement Christine's effort. And so by us being in the weeds of this development reviews, it frees her time up. And our job is not to take her job away. I need Christine to be that point of contact. I need Christine to
Thank
help
you.
guide me into what is the direction of town, what does the town want to do, what does the town foresee their town looking like. But by us being in the weeds, doing the review, it frees her up to go after, and I'm not working for the governor of New Hampshire governor, but in February, the governor had his State of the State address, and this is something here that I've got my finger on the pulse, waiting to see how it comes out. But instead of relying on me, this is something that Christine could be doing, which is finding subsidies, finding grants for the town to help deal with capital improvements. This here, Invest in New Hampshire, I'm not sure if any of you guys have heard of this before, but the governor is looking to appropriate $100 million to communities to help with development with capital subsidies grants, municipal impact funding grants, demolition grants, and then planning and zoning grants to improve their zoning and regulations and stuff like that. But this is something where, this would be something where Christine would be doing the legwork on, because she has more free time to do research on what programs are out there, what funding is out there for the town of Newport, help with improving more on the capital improvements plan, and any other aspects or avenues that this planning board wants to lead on. But because she's so busy, I'm sorry.
It's hiding it.
But because she's so busy with the development, she's struggling to get her head above water. Of course, I'm speaking on, I don't
No,
want
I've written grants before, and you're right, that's pretty much gone out the window when I took on planning, and really didn't get a lot more right. I wrote a couple great ones, even for the tot lot here, got 30,000, and then, well, I do the Brownsfield grant. But you're right, it would be great for us to get awarded any infrastructure. I'd love to see way more sidewalks here in town. This is great to know regardless.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you. I appreciate it.
So is this outboard of CBDG?
My understanding, again, this is just being, I've asked governors, I've asked the New Hampshire Planners Association, I've tried to research, and so I'm trying to look around and keep up, but my understanding is the governor is using ARPA funds to appropriate this. I'm not sure if it's part of the CDGB grant. No one really knows, and everyone's kind of waiting till the next veiling of applications and what the regulations are, or the fine print of that is. But again, I don't work for the governor, so I'm not promoting this, but this is just an example of how
It's out there.
by us, it's out there, and by us helping to do the weeds and the grassroots stuff, this helped frees up Christina's time to apply for LPA projects, Local Planning Association, LPA, through the DOT for sidewalk improvements or bike paths improvements, or go after this, or federal highway for bridges and roadways or whatever. Currently DES has grants out there now that they're using the ARPA funds that used to be state revolving funds for stormwater asset management plans if you don't have one. Again, those are all grant funding opportunities to bring money into the town that Christine could be researching and applying for, because she now has more free time to deal with that. And again, we're not here to take her job. When she doesn't have it, then she go into more planning and we do less of it. And when she's like, no, I'm knee deep, then we are in the ebb and flows of how the board feels fits you guys and your needs. But
There's a little bit of logic that I'd like you to think about with all that money. Who was it? Was it Winston Churchill that said government can't give you anything that it hasn't already taken from you?
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
You know,
It's about
it's our
giving
money to
back.
begin with, and the sad part is
So if they had have left it where it was, maybe we would
We
have
could have
known.
had it.
I mean, I don't know if I should be saying this on TV or
You
not.
are,
I'm going
you
to
are.
be tarred and feathered, but I truly, I don't believe, I think the state of New Hampshire should continue with the no tax on purchases to get Vermonters and Massachusetts and Mainers to buy services and goods in New Hampshire, but we all have to pay a federal tax anyways on our income, and so part of me is like, well, why don't we have an income tax in New Hampshire so that money stays in New Hampshire, and that's less that I'm able to write off to go down to Washington. But I'm not a financial person. I deal with more concrete and pavement, so I'll get off that soapbox before I get tarred and feathered and thrown in the Tea Party, Charles River. But I agree with you. Yes, it's our money to begin with, and so
Right, right.
so let's try to take advantage of it and make sure that Newport gets their fair share.
Yeah, well, I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm a little bit worried about all of this housing shortage, because the baby boomers, got that, this is a bubble, are getting old, and as they die off, there's going to be a lot of real estate available.
There will be. Like I said, everything has ebbs and flows and peaks and valleys.
Problem is they extended our life, we're still here.
That has,
We may live forever.
life expectancy has gone up, so it's all part of the
Demo money that.
same
has-
equation.
Really.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That's good.
No, so, yeah, thank you very much for your time, I appreciate it. Again, I'm here just to educate and take it for a grain of salt. I have no problems with some of the boards saying that third party is not what we want to do. And that's, so be it, not a problem. I'm not here to push our services, I'm here to be a resource.
Pardon me.
Do you need a vote from us?
No, I think we could do this because, I think this could be, no, I don't think there's a vote that needs to be done tonight either way, and you could just put these plans, if you wanted to contract with anyone, or utilize it, as he said, as an à la carte thing, whether we put it in your rules of procedure or we just move forward, that this is, probably would have to go in our that we we utilize this tool or use it spare tire per the board's request.
It's, I would say it's a
That's
resource
already in there.
available, case by case,
Exactly.
if needed.
There, and I think we should, and yes, and I,
It's already in there, isn't it?
We should just make sure that it's in
It's
there.
in
I was
there,
trying to
yeah.
read and see in the rules. I
I
think it's in the
think-
RSA, not in the
in the,
book, but
I thought it was in the subdivision regulations.
I didn't see it,
Under
but I've got to read it again. I was trying
Okay,
to
let's
do two
figure
things
that
at one
out.
time, but like, you know,
but yes.
to me, it's
I
normal
think
and
it would
customary,
be
I just want to
great.
find it, that's all.
Okay, if you don't need guidance from us, then we're okay. But if you need, the vote is 6 against and 1 for, that sends you a message.
Well, I think this could also be done privately, because it's not on any case or anything, unless you'd like to discuss it right now. However you move forward, I just think some of these bridge projects scare me. And even that one up with that storage unit facility. Again, I'm writing down, and obviously I'm gonna concentrate extra on all the underground workings they're gonna have. Because it's Alan and I that go out on the inspections, mostly him and Steve. And then I'm gonna call in obviously Public Works for this too. But Public Works a lot of times isn't building this. We hire people from outside. I just worry, and I've got that I'm getting the maintenance plan for it, which you told me to. But I just worry about some of these bigger projects.
I'm not worried about us saying him.
Right.
I don't think we should do that. I think we should say, yes, we need someone.
Yes,
And then you go on the search for the someone
okay.
and make that decision.
If, this probably more goes to Board of Selectmen conversation, but, or town manager even, because if you're overburdened and you can't do it, and it's in your purview, you know, like building department, it's not planning department, okay?
Yeah.
So if you issue a building permit, like the storage unit thing we looked at last week, if you do issue a building permit for that, and you wanna make sure you've got all the i's and the t's and everything done, and you need reinforcement or help, that's something you should have to go to town manager to say, hey, I need help to review this, can I do
The
X
building
or
permit
something?
could be, it would be during construction, the inspections of it might be over the that's my department, the inspection.
Right, that's what I mean, that department, but that's a
Well,
town manager
yeah.
function. If somebody does a submission for planning board for a subdivision, right? And it's beyond what you think you can review, because it's 400 units or something, you know, whatever, 50 roads, and the town's gonna take it at the end and all that, that's probably worthy of a peer review, okay? Because it's well beyond anything we've done, it's not a simple subdivision, it's got some issues. Then you would come to the board and say, hey, I would like to do this, then,
Oh, I see. You
Converse
think
and talk
that-
about
You
it.
think if it's on the latter side, maybe I ask Hunter to have Gale Associates potentially, because I see the difference you're saying. Yes, but from the planning board side, you make, right, because I think some of the back end side, once you guys have put your stamp on, you made a comment at the end of that review. Now that's a real site review.
right.
Because it was great, it was really extensive. And then I'm like thinking, oh my, it is overwhelming because we do all the inspections. And I'm like thinking, wow. And I am thinking I gotta call Public Works.
Well, yeah, I mean, you gotta
It's a
rely
new
on
road
public.
and everything,
So
yeah.
if Alan can't do it, if he's busy, I mean, whatever,
Or it's a.
you gotta call somebody, he calls the state electrical guy in. Okay, there's a state plumbing
Yeah.
inspector, there's a state fire marshal, you have all those at your
Right.
review, you know.
But then I could, at that point, if I felt very uncomfortable about the inspecting of it, I think we could convey that over to the contractors to review certain aspects of like the road and the drainage and everything. But you're right, I guess that would be more a Hunter approval of us.
Well,
But that normally comes in the building
it's in,
planning, when we do our planning.
Absolutely, I then, whatever you decide to approve.
But if you just say that there's gonna be just something that's not even real. This is gonna be a windmill project with pressurized water, and the mains have to meet.
We can't inspect
You
that.
can't do that, you have a third party come in
Come
and say,
in.
okay, this is what we're gonna do.
And oversee.
And now the applicant knows that they're gonna be required to have this. And
Right.
you get a quote from him, it's gonna be X number of dollars to
Right.
do this inspection.
That's
If you
exactly
wanna
right.
carry on, it's up to them.
That's exactly where I'm coming from. But it means that,
wise owner, developer, whatever, town building a school, right? Town building a new treatment plant, you're investing $10 million of the town's money. You need a clerk of the works, or, a third party watching those kind of things to help on that. That's another avenue, and most owners, if you're building, a big residential development, it's wise to have one, because they're a developer, they're not a builder, you need that in between. That's yet another coverage piece.
again, I'm only worried, we've had a lot of the big ones. Not one of them has cut ground yet. I do believe one is going to, I really do. They have all the, but maybe it won't, maybe they'll just disappear, poof. But if these things that seem to be coming at a more furious pace, and Newport, I just got told the other day, and they're accurate, we have a lot of open land. And when I first came here, I couldn't believe the deals you could get in Newport. Now, I think you're getting more up to what you really should be selling things for. You used to be able to get things where I was like, this is great. But people are figuring out it's still a huge deal, and there's a ton of open land. Trying to think forward,
But
thinking.
getting back to your building department staff, Alan is still part-time, right?
It's 2 days a week.
Okay? If you get that busy, then that's the case for, we need a full-time staff person there. We used to have it, it got reduced because we didn't have it was all residential, you didn't have that much to do. If the burden changes, then you're gonna go back and say, hey, wait a minute, this can't be done, this model, we gotta change it.
Oh, I absolutely don't think I should be fulfilling my duties and Alan his. I was thinking, for some of these multi-million dollar projects, I would ask you guys first probably, do you even believe you feel secure of us doing all the avenues and all the tools I have in my box to make sure this goes up the way you wanted it to go up? And I'm gonna do my best too to make sure it goes up the way you said it was to go up.
I mean,
I just wonder if me being, do you know what I'm saying? I just don't want anything to get through either.
I mean, on the planning side, I haven't, in my tenure that I've been on it, I haven't seen anything we haven't been able to
No.
get through with and stay
No.
narrow to the
Things are built
planning.
well. I
Right.
totally agree. I think
So-
we've done,
I'm less concerned on a planning board side of this.
okay,
Building department side, different animal altogether.
okay.
I think this is a better service for building side. 100%.
Okay. But you guys
Like,
with,
like when the bank put the wrong lights up out there, so they were shining, they weren't the downcast.
Well, that was
or-
a mistake they made.
Yeah, but.
We had done, our
but we-
review was correct.
Yes,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm saying there was the follow-up
they got
hadn't
missed,
caught
it
it.
got missed at the building inspection.
Yeah.
We should have never given the CO, you're absolutely right.
Right.
I wasn't here, and I don't even know if I would have caught it. There was, there was a separate planner. It was one head not talking to the other.
I mean.
But that
when
could
the-
be, you got two.
That's still getting
Yeah.
fixed, that's in legal now.
But when the planning submissions come to us,
Yeah.
that's the importance of acceptance as complete,
Mhm.
is, did the sheet get filled out, or all the parts, pieces there, which is very similar to what's in this report here, proposal here, to make sure we have all those things. If they're not, then we need to kick it back and say, get them, come to another meeting. We can't be so proactive that we wanna get it through, we need to get it right, those kind of things. But,
So let-
you can,
Well, that, like I said, most of when you get a big project like this, you're gonna see it. Because back when we had other people in charge of different departments, we'd say, hey, this is what we got, we need you to review it, and they go, we don't have time. Okay, this outfit's gonna come in, and they're gonna have the time to review it. Because that's when you catch things, not after. When it's built, it's hard to get things turned around.
Or through, I mean, like I said, even through the process. Possibly, I'm just saying possibly, and it's à la carte, and I am thinking bigger, not anything that no homes people are, you know what I
well,
mean? Or-
if you go to a big subdivision where you're putting in roads and infrastructure, right? Where the town is gonna assume them later, which
Yeah,
is a
absolutely.
very tough carrot to bite off for the town, but it happens. And if that was a prime opportunity to do this type of thing, because you are building in the protections of that third-party review, to make sure you get, and then you don't have roads that wander and are
Absolutely.
pitched the wrong way and different things like that. That would be an exact case for this,
Like the bridge in Croydon,
the temporary bridge.
that's not temporary.
And maybe I will have to change things. There's a lot of days that I go out on inspections because my building inspector isn't in. I try to avoid electrical ones, but yeah,
But that's that was a
that's
It's a
Yes.
particular choice that they made. That
absolutely, and it's internal, but I agree, but that's why I said there is issues that I should address on my own with my department, not,
Correct.
right.
Correct.
So, I don't think you guys have to vote or whatever, I think you could mull it over, we could see if it's already in, and then we could decide to sign a contract with who you want, when you want, but I think it would be a good tool for some of the large ones, but that's me, and when you have a multi, hundreds of millions of dollars, if you're asking them to put out 3,000 or 5 during the process, I don't know. That's a lot.
No, that's
not-
that's
When's the
signing
last
the
time
statements.
When's the last time
No,
you
I
paid an
know.
engineer
You're right, I know.
That's one
It's
month's
fine.
worth of meetings.
Well,
but-
there's piecemeal, I don't know,
There's
maybe
30
you're-
grand right there.
I don't know.
Like
Okay,
you,
well-
like you said, I think we look in, see if it's already there. And yes, if there's a project that's coming up that you're not comfortable with, you can tell us.
We could ask you.
And
Well,
then we can discuss it.
And then I could see exactly, based on what I'm thinking, what Scott or whoever does think. Because obviously I say something, Scott's like, that's $85,000. I'd be like, okay, well, forget it, right? At least I would think forget
Well,
it.
planning board is more the rules and the issues.
Right.
Right? So you can steer through that. Building side's a lot different.
Okay,
It's completely different, But for this, yeah, I mean, case by case, and this is informational, and it's available to us, case by case, and if we get that 1 or 2 projects we may need it, then we'll ask. But like I said, often it's usually trumped by the late submission, and we've had them recently, the late submission, gotta get it in because my funding, blah, 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 blah. Well, so what, okay? We have a duty to see it through to get it right, and regardless of the applicant's position. And I've been the applicant and wanted it bad, but it's like, okay, that's the rules I have to play by, sorry.
right.
You should have gotten it in sooner.
True, right, or more complete, or all of the above, and we've seen both sides of the equation. But, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming in.
No, I appreciate your time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
I'll be in touch.
Okay. Now we can go on to the Master plan review, or the zoning ordinance review, or the subdivision review? Which do you want to start on?
I would like to push the subdivision review out a little bit, because I have conversed with, I got, Christine passed out, a long email that I got from, I posed a question to the town of Hanover planner, and he gave us some input here. I don't think this is the first time people have seen it. That's his take on it, but recently at the voting, I saw Howard Dunn, and I spoke with him about it, long-term board member, does the legal side, and I asked him, I posed him the same question, I asked him to weigh in for us, to get some further background, so we had some multiple things to look at. And even he admitted the law recently changed, and there's some stuff he wanted to look up, to bone up on it a little bit, just to help us get through. And he had, he was very interested in helping out and would get back. I just don't know, haven't got it yet. So that was about a week and a half ago or so.
Did he have a comment on the word, the use of?
Initially, he started out with, annex is the way to do it, and yada yada, and it's easy, and it needs to be easy, and then after posing the question back through email so he could just sit and focus on it, he's like, yes, the laws just changed, and I want to read it, and there's more there. So, so I think, like I said, I'd like to wait to get that, and then we can have multiple people, unless anybody wants to keep going tonight, but whatever. That would be my.
I should think we would start with the master plan, and why is that? Because the master plan is the foundation of the house.
Yeah.
Without a master plan, you can lose a case very quickly. And I pulled the law out today, and I just want to read paragraph 1 out of RSA 674:2. I'm reading this assuming that we would do the first thing first, which is the master plan. If we're not going to do that, then I probably ought to read it later. But is that a fair assumption? Master plan is what we would do first?
Right. Master plan.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, master plan is fine with me.
The first paragraph under RSA 674:2, master plan, purpose and description. The purpose of the master plan is to set down as clearly and practically as possible for the best and most appropriate future development of the area under the jurisdiction of the planning board. To aid the board in designing ordinances that result in preserving and enhancing the unique quality of life and culture of New Hampshire, and to guide the board in the performance of its other duties in a manner that achieves the principles of smart growth, sound planning, and wise resource protection.
I think the last time we did this, if you keep going into number 3, they say they ask for survey studies. We did a mailing or I can't remember if it was a mailing or something that we did. I can't remember.
They're
But-
asking for us to send out some surveys
Yeah,
to the
to
townspeople.
the town, it was a mass mailing. And,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on what you would like to see in Newport? But I can't remember how we worded it or what it was. But
I do know of other towns that have done that, and I don't think Newport is necessarily big enough, but that based on the smaller communities, like
yeah,
in
that
Manchester,
community
that have
action
had
survey.
underdeveloped areas, they've taken that, like the 3,000 people that live in that area, and gotten them together on great ideas, so I have seen that. I don't know if we have that many little unique areas, so maybe.
I'm thinking that it was more of a 1 to 10.
So
What's your
so on
thoughts on
page
different things?
page
What is on it?
3 of the community vision portion of this, it talks about the community attitude survey,
Oh, okay,
which I believe is exactly what
What he's talking about,
It was done
okay.
in 2010, it says here.
but the survey isn't in there, so I'll go look for it. Perfect.
Now, I think Sullivan County just did something along those lines.
Like I said, I know
Yeah.
Manchester did it, and they had these
Yeah, for the
great
ca- yeah.
response
For the-
of this very underdeveloped area.
Yeah, it was more for the county, level, but I know there was a lot on like Claremont and some on Newport and stuff like that.
Oh, so the Sullivan County, so Ben
Yeah.
Nelson was,
I-
did that?
I believe they did something, got some feedback from people.
okay.
You know, I can't remember the exact details of how they did it, whether it was just online or, you know, kind of an email sent out to, yeah, hoping for responses, but I know they had a meeting over in Claremont there 3 or 4 weeks ago, where they got a bunch of, you know, of the county leadership, so to speak, and some of the business folks all together.
What does it say about the community survey done? I'm sorry, I'm
So-
low on,
It's a community attitude survey,
did it have good feedback?
2010. Series of questions and value statements to gauge the responders' interest and concern about Newport services, land uses, and desires towards future land uses. Community participation in the survey was 7% of the total households,
Oh, shit.
assuming one response per household. Oh, it's in Appendix A, so it should be in here.
You remember?
So it's in here somewhere, in the A appendix.
I haven't, forgive me, I haven't been following the meetings, so maybe you guys have already gone over this 100 times, but I know Upper Valley, I mean, there's on the front page, but, you know, part of the Upper Valley Regional Planning Commission,
Dave.
what they say that they offer to members is creating and updating
Master
That's-
plans.
Master plans. That's what they do. That's a service they offer to us being members.
I could call
That
them
should be where
tomorrow.
we start
Yeah.
and say, hey,
What
you
was
helped
that?
us build the first one.
Oh, Upper
They
It's
Valley.
did.
it's time to renew.
It's been 10 years, yep.
What do we do? That would be a presentation from them to us.
Upper Valley, is that what
Upper
you're
Valley
talking?
Regional
Yeah,
Planning Commission.
yeah. So the survey is in here, Appendix A.
Excellent.
The-
I just went over this with Vicki Davis, because during that, she said, when are you gonna get your thing redone? But I didn't know they provided that service, so I can ask someone to maybe
Well, they don't do it for us, but they would help us facilitate the process. And say, all right,
And
step one is whatever this thing is, step two is this thing.
This is what
Step three
typically
is this is what we suggest. And based on, since you guys did it in 2012, it's been 10 years, here's what I might suggest you guys do.
Well, thank you,
Was
because this is
anyone on
the
the board?
infancy of this
And
Okay.
endeavor.
What they had also had a visioning forum, and it was registration and refreshments, all that, and an introduction and an overview from the chair, and then visioning mosaic, what's your community like today, what would you like it to be in 10 or 20 years? And then they had breakout groups of, one was housing, one was natural, cultural, historic, and recreational resources. The third was community facilities, infrastructure, and transportation. The fourth was business and industry. And then they compiled all that and into the key master plan topics and what they were looking for. And I think this is what we got from Upper Valley, is how to do this.
Checklist.
Yeah.
But just in front of, well, I don't, first time I got this packet to really look at, but just in front of the visioning forum was the community questionnaire, and the results
Yes.
are the last page of that, just before the vision. And it gives the percents, it's the complete
Thank you.
statistical analysis of that survey.
I actually, yeah, terrible to say, I've read the master plan before, but I haven't gone through those the end. And obviously that's, but only 7% of the population of Newport.
It actually opens with a brief overview. 174 surveys were completed, accounting for a 3% response rate.
Yeah.
But assuming that most households completed one survey, the household response rate would be 10%. So they
Okay.
kind of
But
average.
I think people are more engaged personally than ever in Newport, especially with some of these bigger construction projects. Maybe they'll feel more engaged that more's changing.
I think more people are engaged right now because of Croydon.
and there's school, there's a lot of construction going on, there's a lot of housing. I feel that people are getting more engaged, not that I was here 10 years ago, but I think we could do these surveys to try to get a better response rate. Maybe I go toward it, I don't know.
Well, from my standpoint, the most profitable for the town change was the RC district from the town line. And why do I say that? If there's anything that's important to this town, it's to keep it going. And if we don't extend the tax base and we don't create jobs, we're gonna wind up being where we don't wanna be. So, what did the RC zone do? It brought in businesses that pay taxes, that don't have children. So, if you say you're spending $18,000 a year per student, and Ray here's got 2 kids, that's $36,000. Pretty good house you gotta have. Like, takes over $1 million just to do that. So, residences are not breadwinners for us in that sense. We have to have commercial. And so that move, had it not have been made and left in the zone that it was, most of what's out there now would not have been there.
Some interesting facts in this.
One of the things that was in here was the, what are the following business services we go to see or see more of in Newport? And they had like light manufacturing, and almost 74% agreed with that. Heavy manufacturing, 52% were neutral and 34% agreed. And so that you can see where people are, what their thoughts are on the town.
John, didn't the BOS just do a marketing plan for the new
To the rec center.
community rec center? Did that get,
Not directly, no.
oh no.
Econ.
Oh, Econ, did that get good review? Like, did they do surveys or send out, was there any feedback? Or did they just do like commercials?
None of that has happened yet.
Oh, okay. Are they thinking of doing like a survey
And they-
to see how people feel?
They did it before the last warrant.
I just wonder how I would think that one would be successful too. People have a lot of opinions both ways.
I think a lot.
Schools not cooking.
The rec
Then
center
they-
got
then they might
approved,
have-
I mean, the voc center, the vocational,
Yeah.
so that is done, it's the,
Then they may start, I know that at one point they were talking to wait until after the school stuff because
it's the vocational center did get
they didn't
approved.
wanna,
Right.
they didn't wanna get everybody up in arms because of both.
Oh, I
of them
see
were-
both
were a
going on at the
focus.
same time.
They didn't wanna fight, they didn't wanna fight each other when it was something that a lot of people individually.
Right. I just was interested if that marketing has started, if it was successful, if they did surveys or something, or planning on, but if it hasn't started yet.
I think, another very good question to ask the regional planning commission
Yeah.
is, what do you see that's helping get response from the community?
Okay.
Um,
What tools?
Yeah. I mean,
Stand at the grocery
and,
store,
you
maybe.
know,
With the surveys?
I mean, this board is who drives that, and this board says, hey, we suggest that we make an investment in promoting feedback. That's certainly within the purview of this board to do.
Okay.
I don't know the best way to get more people excited, and as much as, people are excited on social media anyways about the Croydon situation, you can see, the last 2 Board of Selectmen meetings and this meeting here, and probably your last meeting, what's the attendance look like? The same,
Well, the last
sure,
zoning
are people
board-
excited? Yeah, maybe, on social media.
We need to hold our meetings on social media.
Yeah, they are.
We're on MCTV.
So the interesting retort to that was when we tried to do the North Newport district.
Yep.
We kicked that bee's nest and met a full room a couple nights in a row.
That's right.
But that was the only time, and then that was not good for that end of town, put it on the other end of town. But the master plan is all about reaching all corners of the town.
Yep.
Um,
And it's
For all that
great dialogue to have, because, I see Bert's point as, that's, John Stark is a wonderful situation. I mean, there's not many people living there, and there's a decent tax base there. But there's also the other side of that coin of, you can list off plenty of communities that have no industry, that the property values are insane, and because they have identified as that's what they want to be.
No industry.
They want to be the place to live that's quiet, beautiful
Absolutely.
homes and well manicured. And,
Hanover.
they don't want industry there. They want a coffee shop. And, I'm not saying one's right or the other, but Newport's kind of been known as being a pretty good mix of places to work and places to live, with some services that some towns don't have and some services that other towns, do have. So I think it'd be a great, it's been 10 years, it's time to wake that up again. I know the people that were involved in it last time, a lot of them were deeply involved. Spent a ton of time and energy on making sure that this was not a piece of junk. So, like anything, you're gonna get the response you're gonna get, and at the end of the day, you're gonna get 2% of the people that are gonna do all the work. So as long as we make sure we engage those people.
What do you think most needs to change in the master plan? I mean, 10 years ago is a long time in what's going on. You're in the you know what's being constructed, what isn't, or what people are doing. Do you think there's any major sections that should be over?
Me personally,
Or I don't know, just an idea, you're a BOS member, you're the sub here. I feel like there are changes from 10 years. I feel like there's changes from 3 years ago. Mass changes too.
in every community, in the
Right,
last 2
oh,
years,
oh, not
everything has
just-
been
right.
turned on its head.
Right.
Well, and some of it starts with regulation and.
And I think obviously housing is overwhelming. The
Yeah.
change, the massive change.
There
But it's,
are communities here already in Newport that have been completely underappreciated, underutilized, underdeveloped, that are in the process of being developed, which I like to see. Whether it's, whether it's Sugarbrook or area by the airport or places that your family's involved with. I mean, 5 years ago, it was, I'd get a phone call from Ray, hey, I think I'm gonna put another one in, whereas now, how many times a week does your phone probably ring, people begging you to do more?
Well, a big change now is, I guess you'd call it urban migration.
Yeah.
People who are buying and coming are from, cities south of here. That's what you're seeing.
If they're gonna
That's
work
who's doing
from,
that.
if they're gonna work from home, where do you want that to be?
And it's going to get worse or better depending on your point of view.
Absolutely.
Because now you have 5G on the Kellyville Tower.
Right.
But that's not adequate, because 5G requires closer towers in order to keep going. So more towers have to go up. But the person who's going to work from home, got 5G, he can do everything. And so he can come here, have a different way of life. Who wants to live in New York City right about now?
Or Chicago.
I mean, one thing I see, reading the results of the survey last time, granted, very small sample size, but 64% would encourage affordable housing. Yet every time we have a development come in,
They
or an
scream.
apartment building, they scream bloody murder about affordable housing. They want high-end housing. Well, that
It's been,
can't happen.
Any neighbors.
Or kids,
Everybody wants affordable housing, just not in their backyard.
Right.
but a lot
Or
of
in their
times-
school, right?
Right.
So it,
I'm having
It's a blend.
probably every other week, probably at least 3 homes being built from nothing on the property. And, I mean, I had 3 new in Sugarbrook. I've permitted soup to nuts too. We're waiting for some shoreline permits, but then another person just, and you know what's interesting though, we had 13 new homes last year, I think we're gonna easily double or triple that this year. The subdivisions you've seen, I get calls already on the subdivision. The homes that are being built, John is right, although, you know what's interesting, which might be beneficial or not, I have not met one young family that is building on empty land. I do think there's been a ton of young families moving into whatever's up for sale. But we're getting New York, Connecticut, Vermont, I can't go through everyone, and they're typically low 60s, the late 50s, and some of the homes are, one's right across from the airport, $500,000 home. There's another one on Bascom, and then what's going in Sugarbrook is just, it's gotten nutty. Retirees coming, I think they're coming from Connecticut. They're putting a 2,500 square foot home in.
I
And
think,
it's just the two of them.
I think too, it's almost too difficult for young people to go through the whole process of building a home.
Absolutely.
You have to be an older person with more financial means.
Yep.
To make it through the process. That's been my experience of my customers, is I've dealt with a few younger couples and they just don't have the means, the patience.
But it is hopefully, so we are getting a lot of retirees that will not have children, but maybe if any of them live in Newport, which I haven't seen yet, and emptying a home and building, I haven't seen that yet. But hopefully they're leaving homes elsewhere that people can move into. But the whole market is crazy.
Well, that's, I guess we gotta watch out for density, and where the density is. in here.
It's going in the, right. I should probably do some mapping on that, especially with all the new subdivisions you did last year. I should at least do an analysis on how many new parcels we have, that alone.
Right, but they're done within the subdivision rules of the plan.
Yeah, but our rules are so, I mean, you
But
can,
it's when you know, like the whole tiny house invasion, that, it's the wave, right? And the rage for affordability and everything, and that's got some major stopping points if you're not careful.
You're not-
But isn't
not
that the
in
difference
Newport.
between age,
yeah.
right? So
I don't want it.
as Ray has said, you've got a young person coming up, making good money, but the entrance costs are
crazy.
significant and they can't see it, and so they rent and or go into something that the retiree went out of.
Or even just the aggravation of building right
Right.
now, it's.
Right.
the
Just wanna move in.
supply.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah, it's-
You wanna
it's
move in and
just-
be
yeah.
in.
Or even coming through like with Sam last year with the town, that was just overwhelming for him.
Right.
To even deal with us,
Right.
or you guys, I should
Right.
say, because I was sat out, but
I know when he built, well, that was unusual.
it was, but
I know.
that's
It's the
what people are
process.
faced
But that's,
with.
if you're
And it's
not
just
pre-built,
Newport,
if you're
it's
not
everywhere.
pre-built, yes.
Yeah.
It's a lot if you're not pre-built, and I'll say about the tiny house, one thing I will say, not that you can't be nervous about that. Someone putting, like those people that did it on 309 Maple, it is so expensive to build a tiny house on a 2-acre parcel that you have to put in the septic, you have to put in the well. Typically, that's why they went broke, they put all their money and they're hoping to expand. Most people don't even have the money to do that. They're in maybe tiny house communities.
I thought we had a 600 square foot.
We do, they had to get a variance.
Isn't that a pretty big tiny
Well,
house?
They had
But
to
there
get a
again,
variance.
you can't give up on your rules to let that happen. There are communities that are going through this and they got immediate density issues because you got 3 tiny houses on a plot by variance or whatever, and
Well, we don't-
it's
we
out of
don't.
hand
But
fast.
there is a solution. A tiny house with an outhouse.
It's called camper.
It's illegal.
Well, we do have a precedent here, this is true. I still think, believe it or not, that's a pretty expensive parcel for those young people than the workforce housing that might be going in. Because they're paying quite a bit of money to live in that tiny house.
But it's not that would bother me, because they've got an individual lot, they put in a tiny
Right.
house. That's
They're
their
looking-
choice,
they're
right?
looking to
The
expand.
dollar for build, yeah, whatever, but it's, accessory dwelling, oh, and then I wanna have a shed, and then all of a sudden it becomes a tiny house, you know.
Well, it can.
That's the danger, slippery slope that I'm worried about with, now we want expansion of the accessory dwelling clause to be able to put more, because I got 2 kids, not just
Yeah.
one, and I wanna give them each a place, and, you
Well-
know,
That's the thing. I mean,
A tiny house subdivision.
yeah.
Septic system cost now for a 2-bedroom house. Would you peg it at 15,000 plus?
Easily.
A
Easy.
gravity
Assuming you
a
said
gravity
plus, yes.
system.
Yeah.
They're 20
2-bedroom gravity system right now, I don't think you could, it's pretty tough to find one for 15,000,
They're 28 grand.
How much?
under 15,000. It's pretty high.
So, there's one big bullet right there to go.
You could do it.
Most pump systems now are 25, 30.
These homes going in, when I'm seeing whatever's built, whether it's 1,200 or 2,500 square feet, you're not counting the land, you're not counting the septic, you're not counting the well, you're not counting, you're right, the price of the land, any other permitting, and typically the houses are 300 and above in cost to construct.
200-foot well, $15,000 now drilled.
I will say, Ken, we do have a gentleman, Calvin Fear, military, I believe, lives in a tiny house near Pike Hill, and I forget what that road is, Chestnut. He's building a $500,000 house. The plans just came in, and he's getting rid of his tiny house.
Right, I mean, I don't have
You can
any.
believe it. Yeah, but
that's-
it is good, right.
Choose to build on
Absolutely.
a piece of property. What I worry about, like I said, is
But the,
Grandpa and Graham wanna put tiny houses on a property for the grandkids or whatever, and then they come in to get a variance to do it, and then we give away that principle, and I've seen it in other communities do that, and all of a sudden you've got the blue drop boxes from up here
oh,
in
what's
Sunapee.
with that?
So that's the guy across the street, but anyway, you got those turned into a tiny house,
Yep,
right? Like, we were just at Mohegan Sun for a weekend, and they had a home show, so we went and looked at it, and part of the tiny house was, here's your little shack, $30,000, plant it, hook it up, and you're done. And I wouldn't give you a nickel for it, but that's my opinion, and it was on the version of, those get converted all the time, and that's what you get, and then you stack them, or you do that, that's the
just so you
slipperiness.
know, this town has never, ever allowed 2 homes on one property. Just so you know,
I
so
know
far.
that, I know
Really?
that, but,
What are you?
I'm saying, really?
You always know something I don't know. Was it subdivided, non-subdivided?
what I'm saying,
Non-subdivided.
I'm saying but, though.
When
When people come in with a sob story, and yada, 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 then we give away the farm to let it happen, and
Ken, I want to add the funny part to that story, all right? Chandler's Mills Road, they put up this building for business, then there's about 5 feet between the 2 buildings, and then they put up one for a pool, and the house was across the road,
Yeah.
and then
Oh,
they
well.
sell a house and put 2 apartments over there, and then I come along and I have to connect the 2 together? No, the prior person has to.
Right.
And so there's this 4-foot hallway that doesn't get used, connecting 2 buildings. So you say no
It never
primary,
gets
2
done.
primary residence on a lot?
There's not, it's
Yeah.
not allowed in this
how
town.
many garages in town have been turned into,
Oh, well, that's their, if they're attached, that's the ADU.
separate?
Oh, God.
Whatever.
Well, then I don't want to, well, then,
Go for a
I guess
ride.
I mean legally,
But-
legally.
Like I said, that's what
Right.
that tiny house invasion scares me. And you
Right.
can watch all the home improvement channel you want and get all that, yeah, yada, 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 but no.
They're just really more expensive than, it's shocking how expensive they are.
There's one in Hanover that the bill inspector told me about that's $900,000 for a tiny
Right.
house. Less than 600 square feet.
They're ridiculous, there's a tree
With an
house
architect,
in-
I don't know how you get that shooting, but he did, you know,
Overly
Land.
engineered, overly.
so.
they had a
But
really
anyway,
good-
enough on that.
Probably got 150 grand in peer review on that.
I was just kidding, I said peer review. I said there's a peer review on that.
We had a source block, John. So what do we,
I've seen a couple projects get killed with peer review recently.
I've seen, although I've seen some very successful.
If you look in the,
Very large ones though, agreed.
if you look in the front of this, it actually shows you the survey.
It's got all the, it's the survey.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
So,
I could come
So-
up with maybe some inventive ways to try to get people
So-
to fill it out, possibly.
Well, so to John's point, so if we
Yeah,
leave here
there's
reaching
somebody
out
that does
to,
this.
reaching out to those people to do it, update the questions
Yes,
for
oh, I've
current.
got that, I've got that.
Right, so if we update to current questions, because some of these seemed a little dated, get some new data, and then we can read, I mean, I was zoned in myself on the mission statement. Time to maybe look at that and rewrite it. It seemed contradictory of itself a little bit, but
Were you on the planning board when they wrote it? No, no,
I was.
you were.
Yep.
So we at least have someone that did it prior. Does anyone see anything major that was different 10 years ago that they think,
honestly need to look at it.
okay,
Well, technology, that's the
Yeah.
big driver now. It's changing housing, everything.
Well, and
Yeah.
I would say regulation
I
too.
was gonna say that.
You can't
The way
do-
things are done.
You just can't do certain things
Right, we're not
without,
doing things 10 years later, we're not doing things the way we did them 10 years ago.
right, and it's very litigious, so you gotta be,
Absolutely.
skirt that as well.
And the next 10 years, we're all
where's
gonna
it
be,
headed?
we're gonna be, all be what? Electric houses again? Electric cars?
That's from my nuclear plant to be able to serve all the power to the chargers.
Yes, that's right. We're gonna make sure we
But
we
they're
allow for
working
some.
on shrinking the nuclear plants so that, for the mission to Mars, so by then.
See? Elon Musk, Ken Merrill, right next to that.
that'd be nice.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's all there for those reasons.
So if we've got, I think, 11 sections. I think.
Okay, I'm gonna reach out. I believe I'm allowed to send everyone information behind the scenes, and then we will discuss them as I get rolling with how they're gonna assist us, if someone could come down or via Zoom. And then, yeah, maybe however they tell us, but yeah, I would think almost whatever's logical, chew off some sections at a time.
You let them drive that boat, you say, reach out, send an
Yeah.
email and say, hey, we're looking at updating our 10-year-old master plan. Help, can you help? And they'll,
If-
and whatever that response is, guide the conversation.
If John, if they will attend every meeting that we need to for this, have at it. I'll sit here and take the notes. Absolutely. If they're willing to do that, I don't
What's
usually
the
get
matter
that
with you?
much. I usually don't get that
What
much
is the
help.
matter with you?
What?
The school board says 3 minutes and that's it. We don't wanna hear from you. Stay home.
Well, I just never gotten that much help.
I don't
from
think they
that.
want to give you 3 minutes.
But I absolutely will if someone will help us
The
from
biggest
start to
mistake was I
finish.
got on the board.
Even if it's just via Zoom and
If
they
it-
work us through it, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, some of it's just, like John said, read and suggest, start somewhere. and
Absolutely.
Go from there.
And I will feed you that information if I can work through that. Then maybe at that point, we could maybe sporadically set up these extra ones. And then we work on overhauling the zoning code. I will say, if anyone wants to listen to the last CBA meeting, the master plan was mentioned more times than I've ever seen in my life and used, in theory, against the board or to make the board go their way. Because they kept referring, and it worked. They kept saying, it's in the master plan. And then the board would be like, and then they'd say, this is exactly in the, when they wouldn't.
But where in here did it say, give away the farm to benefit the applicant?
Well, all I'm saying is, it worked.
But it says promote farming though. So,
Am I right, Bert? It was utilized, it was
It was.
mentioned a lot.
If they take stuff out of context,
They did.
exactly.
Well, all
But
I'm
I can
saying
take stuff
is,
out of context too.
All I'm saying
On
is-
chapter
I've never seen
77,
that.
it says the planning for the town capital needs and will make good fiscal sense in good and bad economic times and develop a detailed capital improvement plan for long-term capital needs. It doesn't, now, that can be construed as that we want to get more money to do what?
well, no,
You know?
she brought up
I mean, you can-
efficiency, energy efficiency. She nailed that one, yeah, out of there. And that was the reason for the height addition. Of course, we took their word for it because you haven't seen the plans yet. They said it was the,
I just, like I said, I've said it to numerous people, I mean, a variance is supposed to be a hardship and very hard to achieve. And dollars,
You know
dollars, that has nothing to do with it.
I agree, you're right.
and you can't buy it.
That's right.
If you buy your
You should,
problem-
a variance should be very hard to achieve unless there is a very strong mutual benefit of some kind.
I don't vote.
Special exception, different conversation.
I don't vote on the board, I was just
I know,
stating,
I
I
just-
think we could shore up this, to make sure we're writing it right. Not that I think how they used it was wrong, I was just like, wow. They picked, like, I was kind of impressed, because they just
So-
kept coming at it.
How does, I guess one question on that would be, it's in the zoning for the height. I get, you're wondering how they got to the decision without another step there to review.
They were making the case that it was required for super energy efficiency. And that was in our master plan.
The height may have been, but the ways to achieve it are the subject of the conversation. Like I said, you could go up there and you could strip 4 feet off the top of that site, right? Because there's a crown there, and you could take 4 feet off that entire site, be within the height limit, have just as nice a setup as you had before, and never have been an issue.
And I, like you said, they kept referring to the master plan.
Oh.
Well, guess what? Like you said, taking it out of context, it's my job, if I don't know that part, to pull it up online or whatever and go, let's see that spot and make sure it's in
They didn't do
context.
anything wrong. I wasn't actually able to attend the meeting. It was 2 days after my surgery. But I watched it. All I'm saying is it just was an interesting way and nothing was said bad in the master plan. It's an excellent master plan. I just have not seen it done like that.
We did
But-
do something wrong. We could have asked that meeting to adjourn
And move forward,
and
come back to it.
take those ideas and digest them as to what really was. The variance of having it 40 feet high, to me, was unnecessary, and I explained that.
He asked for basically a peer review. He said, you have engineers, they can't re-review this. He did ask for it.
But what they could have done is said,
Bert.
okay, I hear what the applicant's saying and what their reasoning is. You could have said, okay, we're gonna take that and we're gonna research and come back to another meeting.
You absolutely can.
Okay? Without being within the time limit of making a decision.
I was just making the statement.
No, no, no.
I like the master plan, that it is being utilized to make people's cases, and nothing horrible was said.
It's not unlike a school budget, school budget, you get revenue blind is the term you hear. This is, are we so development blind to get business or to get the tax dollar that we're gonna give up on our rules and principles?
Absolutely.
Okay, that was my point. Okay, there's another way to skin the cat, if you will, and we didn't ask for that.
Well, you know what I did
Shame on
like
us.
too, when Bert asked Scott, does it need to be in the master plan for us to ask all these off-site things, which I think are really important for Newport? And he said you kind of need some of that, you need a little bit of a backup on it. Maybe we could buffer up that in the master plan, more off-site work.
Spring Street without a sidewalk going down it with all of those apartments, there was a mistake.
We put a sidewalk in it.
There was a sidewalk on their property, but we didn't get it down the other, because
not on
because
Elm
of the hospital,
The
Medical
center.
The other,
that
But
should have
we
been,
did-
they should have had to have put a
So they are
sidewalk to
obligated
begin with.
in their approval from this table that they are putting a sidewalk, not unlike what
On
we
their
did over
property,
here.
Yeah.
For DeCola's
it
project,
is
we made
not.
him put a sidewalk from Cross Street all the way up to Sunapee Street, so you could walk up the sidewalk and hit a sidewalk at Sunapee for safety.
right, for his, at his property line, all the way up. So if his property line doesn't go all the way to the bottom, we got.
Right.
does it.
However, in the conversation, even Todd weighed in and said, and even Hunter, that is, because we asked Hunter about the sidewalk thing, and it was like, yes, putting the sidewalk is a good thing, and it forces development on Elm
They
Street. Maybe
continue.
the town takes that nugget and says, we're gonna put a sidewalk on Elm Street to improve downtown and make it
But
more
why-
saleable.
But why can't you say to the applicant, this is in the right of way, this sidewalk isn't gonna be on your property, it's gonna be within the right of way. And so being in the right of way, it could have been continued all the way to the bottom. But this is where hindsight is different. Not that somebody did something wrong,
Right.
But if that sidewalk just ends there and somebody walks along the road, or a carriage, or whatever else, right, it could have gone to. So we've gotten soft. I watch both, and we've gotten soft. When this all came in, wow, it looked terrible. It looked like the death knell. It was anything but, just exactly. As a matter of fact, I called Howard down and apologized to him for all of my years of giving him crap. And if he's listening right now, he's laughing because I did, and he got it. Because at that age, I did not understand the value of it and what it did in the long term. But the RC district,
Well-
I look at that as the biggest success that we've done here for a long time.
Right, but, you know, back to Elm Street, right? So if there was a sidewalk on Elm Street, then the development across the street for parking or for anything to be able to reach some downtown would have been more saleable to that property, because, hey, there's a safe sidewalk to get across. And if, yes, we are more insistent on development, especially in commercial in downtown, to extend sidewalks in areas we don't currently have them or improve the ones we have, that is a prudent decision, and a prudent request, in my opinion, you know. And like I said, when we had this one over here for the mill, Cross Street doesn't have a sidewalk. With all that traffic, it probably should have something, but we made them, okay, you're gonna walk to downtown, how do you get there? You go up to Sunapee Street and you go down, that all has sidewalk. Extend the sidewalk up to meet Sunapee Street, because that is that same property all the way up.
And why did we back off on the sidewalk all the way down the railroad that was granted when they came through the first time?
We didn't put that as a stipulation, I don't believe.
No, but it was stated that that would happen.
Wait,
It wasn't a
The-
condition.
The path, it wasn't a condition, that was one of his.
The rail trail.
The rail trail,
Rail
right,
trail, yeah.
right, but that was, he wanted to work with the town to do that, he didn't commit to doing that, if I remember that correctly.
It was just a selling.
It was a sound, but and not unlike he did it with this same one here. It's there as a potential, but it's not in the project. And he's willing to work with, like if the town had a grant that they wanted to fund it, he would let it happen on that property to do it. You know, then you gotta get into the legal side of it, but he would be willing to participate in that to have that happen. Was kinda how that was left.
But in the first instance, if we had said, we're gonna require that because we do not want all of the pedestrians walking up this way,
right.
we would have gotten it, high probability.
I think we could have put it in there, but in that case, I think he could have fought it through legal and said, well, Sunapee Street is there, I can send them up to Sunapee Street some way and not have to develop a mile of rail trail. I think he could have made his case there. Personally, that's just my opinion, but, versus making him develop this walking trail that only, you know, it wasn't on the affected piece, it was associated to
So
it.
what you're saying is he might have spent more money on lawyers than he would have spent on the crosswalk?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I say, I mean, he could have put in a fancy stairway to get up to Sunapee Street, to improve that and not spend as much money as he would have to come down the rail trail. You know, that would be a case where they could get a peer review, go to, like you said, go to litigation to have that conversation for an undue burden, yada, yada, yada.
I think you could have maybe done one or the other. I mean, maybe you wouldn't have got the sidewalk on Craw. Right, I know demanding on-site and the sidewalk, but
But back to the medical center, when we looked at that one, I think, at least I was more focused on Route 11 side as being the front entrance and everything, and really dismiss the Elm Street side. But we could have made them put a sidewalk on that property along the Elm Street side. But like I said, I'd be the first to, I didn't even consider the back, I only looked at the front.
Nobody ever thought that major housing development was going up the road either.
True.
Nobody
Right.
foresaw that.
Right.
And like you said, that's something that in the
Particularly
future,
in
when
that
we
spot.
look at properties,
Yeah.
we gotta go, wait, we've run into that before, so maybe we
Right.
need to make the assumption.
But I mean, you gotta watch, if you like, just say that the North Newport district gets developed. Somebody develops where the gun range used to be, say,
Mhm.
you know, you can't say, well, look, you know, you need to you've gotta connect to our existing
Utility.
sidewalk,
Oh, sidewalk?
you know?
Right.
Well, then the next person halfway in between puts up something, and well now, you know, you can't push people to put stuff in that might happen in 10 or 15 years. You gotta look at the, you know, plausible side, because you're just gonna get legal counseling, and they're gonna just refute the whole thing, and then you're gonna be without a decision that matters. So you gotta kinda look at what you're putting out there. I mean, if you're in close proximity,
Well, yeah,
you
downtown
know,
compact
down,
is a little
especially
different.
in downtown, as downtown works out. A lot of people don't know that the sidewalk goes all the way to the end of the Ruger property where the driveway pitches down to the dam. It's been covered up with dirt, piles of snow. That was plowed when I was a kid all the way to my grandfather's store. And everybody walked, because the buses didn't pick you up if you weren't at least a mile
It was,
away.
yeah.
And I mean, I was 150 feet from the mile, and I had to walk.
Both ways, uphill.
Uphill in the snow.
With his shoelaces tied together.
You
No,
did
it-
walk the 150 feet to get the bus, did you?
And then
No, they
the
wouldn't
mile.
let me.
They wouldn't let you?
No, sir. There's room.
No, the
No,
rules had,
What?
it's not like today where you can go, oh, wait a
Yeah,
minute.
I don't want to run anyway. I'm like, wait, I didn't get that.
he was
Oh,
the
I
one
thought
in
you
wintertime
were
was bumper dragging us through. Yeah.
That's what we used to do.
Well, that picture was-
Guilty,
Those were the days.
guilty.
So if that was the case, what's her name with the bus problem there down south? What's her name?
Oh,
What, South Newport or?
No. Where was it? Down south of the country. She
yeah. She was
got in the
first
bus
one.
and wouldn't get off.
Yeah.
And
Rosa Parks
that
or
was the
something?
beginning of
Was it Rosa?
Oh, Rosa.
Rosa Parks.
Rosa Parks. There we go,
Oh,
Rosa
that.
Parks.
She had a
Like
fire different
trying to-
mission though.
Was she-
So where were you, Mr. Burnham?
she-
We didn't rock the boat. We had parents at home.
I don't know, I lived up in North Newport, and once I hit a certain age, other than, you know, like wintertime when it got too cold,
Yeah.
do I want to ride the bus with all the kids? No, I'm too old for that. I'd walk. I'd walk the railroad tracks down.
Anyway, so if we can get that, some input from Upper Valley, if they've got, by now they must have an update on how to do this survey. I mean,
Yes,
some of this
absolutely.
stuff is antiquated.
Well, and it-
I'll get a lot of, I'll try to pull together a lot of fresh information, including if there is someone that would actually maybe meet with us once a month and follow through
did.
the whole process. I
They
think that
did.
sounds great.
Yeah.
And that they could give me a lot of, I'm sure, information they can throw to me to front me on it. And then, I think a survey sounds cool, and maybe try to get that way up in percentages. And then, yeah, there was something else I'm forgetting. I thought I was gonna say something else, and now I've lost it. But maybe after I contact the Upper Valley Lakeside Regional, Planning Association, we then, maybe at that point, I come back with the information, then we plan like an extra meeting, maybe not in April, or maybe late April, but maybe May. And then maybe skip some of the summer months, maybe, if people don't wanna meet, and maybe,
Yeah, you get-
or just keep going, keep pulling through.
This is gonna take about 3 to 4 months
I think at least.
to get compiled. Some of the stuff is pretty easy. The statistical stuff, you can get that, you know, the population and the amount of people that are going to school and all that stuff.
Well, I think we probably should have started 2 years ago. At least we're only at the 10-year mark. We're not like 2 years past it.
Well, we have a baseline to work on.
Absolutely.
We can go through and pick out some of the stuff that,
Yeah, if
you
anyone
know,
will
that
start
we've
taking notes.
done, you know, and stuff that we're looking forward to be doing. Like instead now, the RSC's done, maybe we need to be looking more for the North Newport end. and
That's,
see what we can
that's
do.
gonna, that corridor up to the Upper Valley, and it's all open land.
Yeah.
It's gonna be eaten up like you wouldn't believe. People might start wanting to investing in North Newport.
We already tried it.
You did?
No.
It's all open land owned by.
But it's open land and it's getting developed.
Well, in that last go-around, we convinced him that if there is development, he's sitting on a gold mine, so that kind of opened his eyes to,
Anybody with land,
yeah.
Yeah,
But-
anyone with
sitting
land.
on land is what they're sitting on. It's a gold mine if it wants to
Yeah.
be.
Especially if it's flat.
It's nice up
Well,
there.
it's a gold mine until the economy goes kaput. And then the
And it's a gold mine.
property taxes eat you alive.
Well, you know what's interesting too about that? God forbid a project does go under. And we know to get the bonds. And we all do that for the roads and stuff. But what about what if we did have to demo some infrastructure? I used to live in Boston when all these buildings went up and literally it was just scaffolding. See, they didn't even have windows, nothing. For years you went by, tall structures that, now they just sat there, but I did find it interesting that there were 5 million in demo grants. I thought might be cool to even go for some of the abandoned structures around, but I did find that interesting too, that God forbid a project did go under and it's some hideous structure that's just open floors.
Well, but that goes to the applicant, right, or the developer, if you
If they
will.
go bankrupt.
Right, but they're also bound by the building permit process, and you got X amount of years to complete the project. That's all stipulated in there.
Absolutely, but if
Yeah,
they go
so-
bankrupt, they just disappear and they leave their
But there's,
structure.
but that goes with them. That's attached to that property.
What goes with them?
That property, the ownership of that property has to be somewhere.
Right.
Well, it would
It's
end
either
up with
the
us.
town
If
or
they
the
would, it
person.
would end up with us.
But if we took it, then the
Corporate.
burden is still on them to,
Yeah.
Not when they disappear.
When they go belly up and
They
really,
just
when they go
disappear.
really belly up and just don't relocate,
They're
the
gone.
what's left behind is your
They're gone.
absorbed liability.
Why do you think we're getting rid of the Embargus Mill? There's no one left.
How about the Door Lagoons?
Right.
no, we signed up for that though. That's
If-
different. We
all
signed
I'm
up
s-
for that.
All-
After they were already in.
Right, but we signed up for it.
I know.
Don't know why, but we did.
But
Right.
once a company goes bankrupt.
No, but we as,
you're-
I say
you're
we
not-
as
it's
town.
getting
but-
blood
That's,
from
that's,
us.
that's why we can use some of that funding if you can apply for it.
I loved that. This was informational enough for me because they are giving money away like they're printing it, which I do think someone has a printing press in their backyard. Someone's printing money,
It's
but I'll
easy
tell
to
you,
swipe your pencil and
But
put
if you-
zeros after a number.
they're printing money for housing like you wouldn't believe.
Right, but there again, the town, if you applied for the grant, or the town applied for the grant to get it, we got X amount of money, that's there to entice an owner
No.
to,
No, it'd be Newport's money.
yeah, but what are you gonna do? You're gonna put Newport's money into
Well-
some private developer's building.
No. We had to
She's talking
demo
the demo.
where we put the
Oh,
top
the
lot,
demo, no,
we
no.
demoed the
Look
house.
at some of the other ones.
Oh, yeah.
You
Oh.
could offer tax credits or whatever based on this dollar to incentivize a developer to put something there. Not unlike, like the mills in Claremont or something to get developed, but I'm sure that's got a CBDG or something in it that's a similar program.
When's the last time the town took a property that had to be demoed? I mean, I remember one up here.
There's one on Maple.
We did a lot of them.
Down here
a couple
behind,
years ago.
3 in the last
Behind
couple years.
Harrington's.
Yeah,
Have there?
yeah.
Anyone that's been possible has been done.
Really?
And there might be a few more coming down the road, unfortunately.
May or may not
There's
be.
actually a disaster near Burke
You mean
that
from
we're
the-
taking.
Right now, the property value.
Which one?
Property's so valuable.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, you are finally?
well, it's out of my
You know
hands,
what I
it's
mean?
Hunter. I don't
Takes
take.
They're working on something.
Yeah.
They're bringing in fill and they're out doing all kinds of stuff.
That's the,
Oh, no, not
one
that
out
one.
front, yeah.
But there's a
Yeah, blue.
disaster
On Chandler
that was
Mills Road,
left
Dave,
on
just past
near where
where
Burke
it
is.
Chandler's Mills Road.
What was that,
Oh.
what
Right where,
Oh.
right where the dirt begins.
was that
Yeah.
woman's name? Millie or something? You said it at one meeting. The old woman that used to live there?
Where,
Um,
out front of his driveway?
No, the trailer on Chandler Mills Road.
Cummings, Lori Cummings.
Oh, across from your field.
Yeah.
And
That's all
they
gonna
moved
be our
everything out.
expense.
Well, wait a minute. She up and left.
Yeah.
That's number, well, the rest of the story is, and he doesn't want to hear this, is her being elderly, they let the taxes go rather than after the 3-year period.
For 10 years.
And so I think the last time I looked, it was $16,000 she owed. Now, take that porta potty off of there, which is garbage, they went to empty it out and threw all the stuff away because it was all mildew and junk. So now you want to buy that lot, okay, Bert will go buy that lot. You can't put a septic system in, shoreline protection. It's useless. And the town is out. The s-
16.
If the 16 grand is 20 grand
We can be
now,
out that anyways, right?
who's gonna give them 1,000?
But the demo, the clearing of that property is gonna be pretty extensive. That's minor and it's definitely worth doing because it's an eyesore, but there might be some more. I just found the demo one interesting because a lot of towns, you drive by and you're like, oh, what? Like, there's an old home, I think it must be in Vermont, that literally looks like a ghost home. No one's lived it, it's right on the highway, or it might be going to Brewport. It's frightening, but the town, I guess, doesn't have any money, no one lives it, it's all grown over. There's another home like that in this town too, I forget. Anyways, that demo and that
System.
planning.
We could list off a handful.
Yeah, but you,
None of
I
them
thought the demo
current-
could be
None of them
cool.
currently are owned by the town
Right.
and are not prepared to be demolished.
Right. Well,
When they, the ones that we're all thinking of, the clock is ticking.
But there's a process that has to bake itself,
It's
and
a
it
very
takes years.
Serious
Yeah.
process.
And then we'll get the federal government to give us a grant to get rid of it.
well,
There
this
you go.
is.
If they take it
this
from,
is
they're
state.
taking all of this
Sell it
money
to-
away
sell
from
it
you
to
so they can give
Bert.
it back to you.
There
Say,
you go.
Bert can buy that property he was talking about and put a tiny home with an outhouse there.
Yeah, one of those little pumping stations.
You can put it- There you go.
Well, you could also use the
No,
cap.
no, do a tiny home and buy yourself a septic tank,
That's
truck,
what we said.
right? And just pump it into the truck, and then when the truck gets filled, you take it, dump it.
Then you can spread it on your field, make hay.
No, because we didn't pass that ordinance.
You can donate it to
That
yourself.
didn't pass,
You can,
remember?
you can
That
donate it
doesn't-
to
that doesn't
yourself. You can donate it to yourself and use it, you just can't pay for it.
Well, I was gonna take it a step further and just kind of think you take that septic truck and you drive down Chandler's Mills Road and turn around.
You won't get back.
But,
I think this conversation's going down the crapper now.
nice.
You are, you,
Are we done?
yeah, all the way, right, I'll talk about it, they're right. There was a capital improvement, we could build if I got a grant for that, we could build sidewalks all over town, or connect the ones that end, which would be great for people. Anyway.
We do need to
can
make a
look
note to
into it.
look up that peer review statement,
Yeah.
just to make sure we have it. That
Yes,
it's in the reg so that if an applicant reads it,
let's, and then we can maybe, you guys tell me how you feel, and I think, I just thought it would be a good tool if you guys wanted to use it, especially if you don't feel comfortable.
We've
with
had that option right along.
Yes, you have.
It-
It's there,
You don't have
it's
to
in there,
say,
we just gotta
okay,
find
this, it's not like having an attorney on call. We don't have to call
Right,
Mr. A or Mr. B or Mr. C. We can call Z, how much, we can call
Right.
C, how much, and then if C is better than,
right.
we don't have to use it.
although I'm not a real estate.
Well, that's true. I mean, does a contract really need to be said? Right.
Absolutely not.
It was great information, but it's a,
You use
It's a
it a la
resource.
carte, whether you, yeah.
It's no different than a grocery store saying, we have great produce and we have a great bakery. If you choose to use them, fine. If you decide to go to Claremont and get your stuff, that's where you go.
I wouldn't, right, yeah. Right, perfect. Let me look up and see, make sure the writing's in there.
I glanced quickly, I couldn't find it, but that doesn't mean anything.
Because we don't want to surprise a candidate.
I went through it and I couldn't find it. I
Yeah.
put it back in here.
It's standard protocol, I know it is. Anyways, motion to adjourn?
Well, we
Oh,
still
you got
got,
public,
we
sorry.
still got administration. Has
Oh, you're not
anything else come in since last week?
Tomorrow is though.
No, I didn't plan on anything tonight, just because I
Okay.
figured.
As soon as I get the email from Howard with some explanation, I will gladly pass it on to everybody for
Okay.
a preview of that conversation, for the lot line and all that stuff.
And the board has no communication, so I'll open it to the public for anything under the purview of the planning board.
But only for 3 minutes.
Seeing no one, no hands, no Zoom, come back to the board.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it at 8:14. Thank you very much.